to reach the heart of every learner. And I'm here today to, first of all, get to know the technology again. This is my online classroom office. This is the office. Yep. Okay. And we are working towards a community that already knows me and will reconnect with me, as well as building a community of leaders that are connected to neuroscience and excellence. The key word here is excellence. So those of you that are watching, I already know you're into excellence, and I want to thank you on a Sunday afternoon to show up. We're live, and that's why we're going to go casual, because leaders know, like I know, that Sundays when you're active in your field are times to relax and rest. But my belief, as well as a lot of my friends, is not a time to not learn, but we're going to learn in a restful state and casual state. So I thought I'd introduce you to my online office. So thank you for being here. We're going to do a quick, brief review about power versus force. And I'm going old school today. No slides, no stacks. I'm just going to give you a background on Teach to the Brain and the motivation of what I did in my career of teaching and what we were able to do together, my co-author and late husband, John D. Applegate. So I'm going to share with you some of the background of what we trademarked as the brain responsive approach to teaching, parenting, coaching, and leading. And I'm going to show you some of the big influencers in my life, because all of us have people that influence us, and we reach to their leadership. And leadership is who I'm talking to right now. You guys are here because you're leaders, and you need support and help, just like I do. And I hope we can build a community that works together to lead in the most brain responsive way that leads to top achievement and excellence in all we do. So let me first talk about the book that really started my path onto Teach to the Brain and the Heart Will Follow. This book is called Power versus Force. Some of you know it. Let's see if I can find the camera. Is it there? There it is. That's funny. I'm learning, you guys. That is so fun. So this book, Power versus Force, this was one of the books that changed my direction on how I taught 8th grade. I'm an educator of 35 years in middle school. I'm also a teacher leader. I've been certified in 2 different states and spent over a decade in both, 2 decades in one state and a decade in the other, learning the power of the school systems and learning how this concept will actually be the hidden determinants of the human behavior around me. And I get very emotional talking about this, as when we go into a live leadership institute this next week and I meet with people, leaders, hopefully you, face to face. Some of you have been around my instruction, but it's going to be a day of collaboration and support and growth and goals and dreams and things that we as leaders can do to empower the people around us. Mm-hmm. And that comes from the idea of empowerment versus the idea of control, which is, as you see, force. So this book I'll talk about at the Leadership Institute. It's a framework for the brain responsive approach in the sense of the research that backs up the why of why I chose to do the things I did in writing brain responsive strategies and identified the 12 essential elements, as well as the 3 faculties of the mind. Now, another book that came into play was a book called Strength Quest, and a lot of you know this book. This is a book written by Dr. Donald Clifton and Dr. Edward Chip Anderson. And Lori Schreiner all doctors of education, put together as they went on a quest to identify what did create top achievement. And in my search for what was it that I'm doing, how do I put a word or a title to this, this book showed up from a very wonderful person in my life, my son Elliot, as he entered into college, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and this was a book that he came home with that day. The first day on campus, learning all about what was where and how this was all going to work in his college years. And he looked at me and said, "Hey, I think I found your answer." As I was constantly jabbering and talking and processing out loud, what is it that's the most effective way to work with people to bring out their top achievement? And this book did answer it. And Elliot was incredibly insightful in understanding and seeing what John and I were going through at the time of trying to figure out research and human behavior and coaching 125 kids on a swim team. Yes, we did that. And we had a wonderful experience of a decade growing a team from 35 to 125 swimmers. What was unique about that is we went from last place in a summer league of a competitive introduction to competitive swimming league of 13 public pools and teams to being the champion that 9th year. So we were pretty excited about that. And that was as we practiced identifying strategies that were most effective for motivation, engagement, and learning. And that story will come a lot within the identification of how this framework works. And it will help you understand that most of you that are in education, whether you're an involved parent or a teacher in the classroom or an administrator managing all of the systems in the school, or if you're someone who leads people and has to teach people about systems, you're going to really, really enjoy understanding this storyline because it's your story. It's all of our story. And what we found out when we were putting this all together, it was never, ever the people that we worked with. It was never the people. Because when you really get to know people, people are good. People are kind. Think about the people that you work with every day. And if a crisis went down, you know everyone in your circle is going to step up in some way or another. It's going to show up. It's just a fundamental fact that people are good. But what's not good that John and I found out is the model that you walk into or get caught under or surrounds you of how to manage the spirits, the growth, the desires, the collaboration, the friendships, the what I would call the secondary needs of the brain with these massive systems that you manage or have to motivate or help. And it's tough. And the system that we fall under 99% of the time in our field of education for John and I was a model of control. It's identified in Strength Quest early on, and Chip Anderson identifies it. And he quotes Chip, I quote Chip here, his words, deficit remediation educational model. And there is more research that shows us that all of us have been under a deficit remediation educational model, especially if we went to school in the 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s, as we tried to understand what is wrong when everybody's pointing out what's wrong and trying to fix it. And it becomes a model of control. And that's what this book will help you understand in the fundamental frameworks of how we believe in the human spirit and the human being and the gifts that are brought forth to us every time we meet a new learner. I will call them learners, whether they're adults or children. Everybody I meet is a learner. So I can't get that out of my framework. So as I do this, you're the learner, I'm a learner. So let's talk about that and identify what model the control model has over learning. And that's what the Leadership Institute is about. It's identifying specific strategies that are effective or ineffective for motivation and engagement. It's a lot of reflection as we work with the 3 faculties of the mind. Emotion will be a piece of the day, I promise. It will be fun, because when you're having fun, you learn the best. So we will have a lot of fun and a lot of laughter. It will be the cognitive faculty of the brain as we work with schema, or plural schemata, of how we see the world and how others. And I will go deep into the understanding of perception in the brain. And this is the part that we're going to look at, the parts of the brain and what happens with the brain when it grows, and etc. And then we are going to talk about reflection. And I will ask all right now to just stop and reflect on the things that you lead and your goals and the good that you're doing right now in the world, because everybody is doing a lot of good. And our brain is just going to focus on survival and thriving, and I'm going to teach you all about that. But there's a lot of good going on right now, and I am witness to it, and have had the last year of a devastating year of grief. And I can tell you right now, the good that came forth was always there. And boy, did it present itself there when my need showed up, the need for help. So I am happy to report I'm doing really, really well. Our book is up online at Balboa Press. I will announce all of it when I have one in my hand. I have yet to actually hold John and I's book. So once I see that, I will share it with everyone in the world, I promise. But I do want to go back to the agenda of the day. So I'm going to give you a little assignment. If you have a Kindle, if you have a need to go to Barnes & Noble or a bookstore, I want you to first seek out this book, because we are going to study it in the Leadership Institute. I'm going to help people understand that everything is energy. And so your leadership is energy, and the energy that we put forth is going to be reflected and affect anyone that shows up into your environment. So that's what we want to talk about right now, is the energy that is happening, first of all, around you. And just don't have to take a note, just think about it. What is the energy around you in this moment as you watch this? Maybe you're laying in bed and everything's restful and the energy is low and it's good. You're relaxed. But I'm going to ask you to reflect. Is your energy also anxiety as you lay there, or is it calm? Because the goal is peacefulness. And when we can get to a place of learning in a group of people, children, adults, combination, if we can get to where everything is at a peaceful rate, it's peaceful, things are moving, then you absolutely know you have the empowerment environment for maximum acceleration of growth. And it only grows so fast. The universe and God force and energy doesn't let a plant grow any faster than it's going to grow. That's where we have to be patient. But children, learners of all ages are exactly the same way. It's going to take some time. And I can speak for myself. I had to relearn how to come back into the world and be alone in the world right now, yet I'm not alone. So I had to break some major belief systems, which is the second point I want to make in this masterclass or relaxed training. What about that? Think about that for a minute. And you're asking me, think about what? And that's how fast anxiety and stress can make you forget and not even hear things, right? So I want you to reflect. I want you to stop and think about, how do you feel right now? Are you anxious or are you not? It's kind of some things that have to be one or the other. There's things in the world that all of us have to stop in learning and leadership, and it all leads to this leadership thing we're doing. Are we effective or are we not? And that's where I built a T-chart that you will now, because you're at this webinar, you're going to receive that in your email. And that's why we have you register for this webinar, so that I have specific people that I can interact with. As the world's large and the webinar's public, I'm not sure who's always viewing. So if you really, really are interested in connecting, opt into this webinar or just opt into teachtothebrain.com, because we're now connected that way. But how do you feel right now? Because it's really important in leadership to understand others feel the way you do, and taking a big deep breath and going, wow, this is crazy. We get it. So that's where I want to talk about one more thing. I want to encourage you to come up with a book that you're going to introduce to some young person. And this is what started me. And I'm a book person, obviously. And this book came out when I was teaching middle school at District 145. And it did two things for me. John knows this. I wanted to be an author, because this is from a teacher's point of view. And Susan was so motivating to a guide to understanding your brain and boosting your brain power that I started buying copies for my classroom. I had 10 copies in the room. I would read from it every day. It's full of pictures and facts. And it really got me motivated to learn, what am I doing here? And learning is huge. It can't possibly be all my responsibility to teach these 14-year-olds everything that's in these books. There has to be some self-directed self-reliance on this. And we're talking in the early 2000s. The internet was new. We were learning all about this stuff. We didn't do this yet. And that's when I came up with what is learning. And I studied it and studied it and studied it. And this is the insight for today's webinar. I hope all of you understand that what you're leading is really quad dimensional. There's 4 layers of learning. And I have a wonderful YouTube channel, Teach to the Brain and the Heart Will Follow. And it's posted. I did a lesson with the PowerPoint video on it. But I'm just going to walk you through the 4 layers of learning. What is learning? And it's defined as 3 words. Learning is connections. That's what learning is. And how do you know learning is connections? Well, it's 4 layers. And it starts at the cellular level, where your dendrites have to connect to each other. And they have to connect and connect and connect through repetition of whatever you're learning to create a neural network of understanding where the electrical chemical flow can happen. Makes sense, right? So learning is connections at the cellular level. Well, the next level is still inside the head. And with those connections, you build the second level called schemata. And that is the cognitive ability to look at something new and have a framework inside that brain. And how this works, I'm going to teach you, because we've been studying it and studying it. That's the 1001 ideas, right? But the schemata inside your head builds more connection, and it helps you learn what's going on in your environment around you. And that sensory organ in your brain, the top part of your brain, your eyes, your ears, your nose, what you taste, what you feel, all those senses are interpreted in learning. And it's those things that help us learn faster and more. So we have the cellular level, We have the cognitive schemata level, connecting, right? Cells, connecting, dendrites. Then we have to go outward, and now we have our social. And so now we're learning with all those two layers, moving, doing inside our head. We're now connecting to the outside world and watching everything around us from people, places, things, and events. And we are learning from that. And the connections are in a social way, or lack thereof, thus less learning. And then the fourth way we learn is by our choices, whether they're good or they're bad. We learn, and we learn from those choices that make us move forward, or maybe we don't learn from that choice and make the same mistake again. Guilty. That's how you learn. So learning is connections. Learning has 4 layers of connections, and everything we do as leaders needs to lead people down the road of connecting, and they have to have something to follow. And I will end on this. The best leaders in my life, and there were 3 or 4 that I hung on to in different areas of my careers. And I have a very strong leader, a couple of them right now, that help and coach me. They're kind, and they're friendly, and they're interested in what I'm doing, and they're excited for me. They're confident because they lead with this idea and belief that those that are following, we want to bring them to top achievement. We want to help that. And because they think that way with me, I want to follow them. I'll follow everything they say. So that is a big statement on leaders. Leaders that you want to follow are called effective leaders, top leaders, leaders of excellence. Leaders that you don't want to follow, there's nothing to follow. Well, those are ineffective. And I will tag the word failed leaders, because the word itself says you're supposed to lead, get to the front of the line and let us follow you. And the front of the line looks a lot of different ways. But if you don't do anything that motivates, engages, or helps my psyche, my 4 layers of connection, my cellular structure, my schemata, my social structure, and my choices, if you don't help elevate those to excellence, I'm going to have a very difficult time following you. And then the leader can either change, or they can continue to be ineffective and thus not have very effective followers. I guess I'll say it that way. So that's all I want to talk about today. We are busy. I am getting ready for Wednesday, July 15th, the Leadership Institute. I do have an early bird registration link for a discounted price. And if you do sign up for early bird registration, you'll have a session with me on that day for 15 minutes plus a time slot where we can meet like this privately, and I can lead you into a brain responsive neuroscience leadership track, as you'll have a lot more information attending the Leadership Institute Wednesday, and you'll have your binder and your digital tool book, and you'll have your access to the Brain Academy, where we do meet like this on a daily basis. So you'll have access to me and work with me a lot, as well as some incredible people that are incredible leaders that I learn from every day. So I want to thank you again. Look below for the link to the early bird link to the Live Institute, Leadership Institute on Wednesday, July 15th here in Lincoln, Nebraska. We have limited seating, so I am actually curious to see if we can, well, I hope everybody gets the seat that they want. I've had a lot of interest, and I hope if we can meet everybody's needs, everybody's going to be happy. So that's all I'll say to that. And I'm brand new at this, so my team's helping. And I hope you have a wonderful Sunday. And if you're seeing this as a recording, whatever you're doing right now, I hope you're having a great day, and thanks for watching. Direct message me on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, because some of you are hooked up there with me, and let me know what you think. And in the meantime, you gotta always remember, right? Always remember, teach to the brain and the heart. Oh, you have to always remember, as you continue to learn and grow, teach to the brain and the heart will follow.